What specifically do you like in the group? And I ask that as we've seen 17,000 anti-tank missiles, Javelin missiles, deployed by the U.S. and allies just in the past 6 days. I'd imagine there's going to be a very near-term bump in terms of restocking for some of these weapons. They're getting sent immediately. But then there's also the longer-term programs we've been hearing about.
Yeah, sure. So, on the funding, I guess in terms of the dollar amount of the stuff that we've sent over to Ukraine so far, it's a lot of weapons, but in the context of, call it a $750 billion defense budget, it's really not a huge number. So I think, the bigger question is going to be what happens to overall U.S. defense spending from here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the clear direction is that it's going to go higher, right? I think, we're in the midterm elections this year. Nobody's going to stand up and say we shouldn't spend on defense. So the direction is clearly for it to go higher. In terms of the stocks, I think, two that were overweight, General Dynamics, where you get not only the defense budget benefit, but then also a strong business jet growth and recovery from here. And then L3 Harris, which, is a little bit cheaper, sort of on pension adjusted earnings. And I think it's pretty well situated because you're sort of more platform agnostic. You don't need to take a bet on which platform we're going to spend more on. They're really a supplier kind of across the DoD.
Yeah, in terms of defense spending, both here and the U.S. and then, of course, abroad among our allies. I mean, that the announcement by Germany last week cannot be understated how big a deal it was for that country to come out and basically say it was going to double its budget over the next couple of years. Curious, though, about whether defense spending here in the U.S. can actually keep pace with inflation, because we do know that the Pentagon is, and we're on a continuing resolution right now, which hopefully gets fixed this week, but we do know the Pentagon is burning through billions a month just maintaining the status quo.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And look, I think that we're going to get sort of inflation plus growth here. I think it will be a positive just to see Congress sort of move and come to an agreement, even on the fiscal 22 budget, which, as you mentioned, we're sort of halfway through the year. We still haven't passed. We're still under a continuing resolution. I think these companies will benefit just from having the certainty that comes from having that budget passed. In addition to that, I think we're going to get finally a budget with sort of a long-term spending forecast that we've really been in the dark here for the last couple of years. We're going to get a new national defense strategy. So we're going to get just a lot more clarity on where defense spending goes from here.
And finally, quickly, we were talking about Boeing a little bit earlier in the show, but when you see these companies, these aerospace companies that have a defense portfolio as well as a commercial aerospace or aviation portfolio, and maybe a halt in the example of Boeing on titanium coming out of Russia, how does that affect the company? Is that something you steer clear of in terms of investing in the sector right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's something to be concerned about. I think, Boeing provides a lot of the titanium for its supply chain. I think that they have a pretty good stockpile. Since 2014 invasion of Crimea, they've really been a lot more conservative about making sure they have second sources, making sure that they have enough titanium. So I think that they're set for a little while. If this situation and the stoppage of titanium were to drag out, that will eventually become more of a concern. I think on the defense side, you're going to be a little bit more insulated there. There's something called the Berry Amendment that basically the U.S. defense firms are going to buy from U.S. providers to the extent that that's possible. So, on the defense side, the risk of any disruption there should be a lot lower.